Hello, it's me, Kyle. Welcome to Give Pause Hobby, the channel where I stop to appreciate the things I love to fill my free time with. And specifically, welcome back to State of the Hobby. It's been a month since I put anything up on the channel, so I took a little bit of a break. And I guess that's the first thing to light on, the Give Pause. It's been really successful in sort of reigniting my excitement for making things, giving me a chance to breathe a little bit, which coincides with concert season at school. So that is all good because there was more than enough going on in my life, especially with all the snow days messing up our schedule being what they are. So one of the ideas I had was to kind of make a backlog of videos so I could draw from that, and I didn't do any of that. I have a number of individual or larger project ideas that I've kind of sketched out or at least brainstormed. But no, I didn't produce anything over the pause. And I'm kind of coming out of it with just a different mindset. I am, again, excited to be bringing stuff to the channel, but it's not going to be the regular go like every week like it has been for a while. I think we're just going to see where that leaves me. One month it might be all 4 weeks. Another month it might just be 2, and I think I'm okay with that because it's something I enjoy doing. And if it ever stops being that, I should adjust it. I don't want to stop making stuff, but I want to see if I can make them at a rate that can ebb and flow with that of my life. So yeah, I think it was super successful in what it set out to do. I have some really fun projects that I'm excited about coming up. Some of them I'll allude to here, but aside from that, let's keep moving. What else has been going on? I'm gonna keep these short because I have my big topic, my 10-game challenge that I'm excited to talk about. Let's see, Empyreal and John Company were both games that came at the end of last year. And I have finally, John Company, I have 3 games under my belt, 1 with another person and The Crown, and then 2 solo. And it is just fantastic. I am just a regular thought process of mine is how I can shoehorn that into more gaming groups because it's not for everybody from a logistical, but also a, thematic and mechanics standpoint. It's a little tricky, but it's just remarkable and I love it. Empyreal, I just finally got my first game with the solo opponent in, and I've only got 2 games in so far, but I'm really excited to explore all of the different solo company decks that they have. Excuse me. And bring it to the table. My wife and I love a couple other train game, and I know this is, sort of a shift on train games, but still got trains, still a game, and I think she's really gonna like it a lot. That's Empyreal and John Company. So next up, Parks and Dune are both favorites of ours, and we just recently played for the first time those games with both of their available expansions each. Parks, we had Nightfall, which adds a decent amount of mechanics to the game, and then Wildlife just adds more of original game stuff, a little bit of tweaks to it, some icon stuff and all that, but it's just super fun and reminds me of how much I love that game. And Dune, Rise of Ix, I really enjoy interacting with. My wife doesn't do as much with the technology stuff, but Immortality, we just play with both of them, and it's super fun now. And yeah, we just really enjoy that game a lot. We also got insane 3D printed box control that was through Etsy, but shipped from the Czech Republic. I cannot remember the name. GivePauseHolic, I think it is. I'll put the link down below. I have no idea how much volume this person has available, and it's not the cheapest box control in the world, but it takes it stores the game super efficiently, and you can have each of the players like little boards just set up with all the cards and tokens and everything. And then the box control becomes like the market in the game. So the cards are like vertical and you can read them as opposed to like looking over them on the table. And anything, as games kind of like expand like that, sometimes box control seems superfluous, but a game like Dune with both expansions, which all fit into the core box, it's worth its weight in gold because it's going to mean getting it to the table that much more often, which is good. All right, next up, Ahoy from Leader Games. I'm excited to get this to the table more. I'm working on not an automa, definitely not an opponent, but like a function of the board to kind of refresh itself in a couple different ways. Like with lots of games, the 2-player game is possible. It just sort of takes some of what happened in some other way and like repurposes or repackages it. And for those who've played Ahoy, that would be specifically the increasing of the wealth dice and refreshing of the card market, because it's just sharks and mollusks against each other. So there's no merchant to, trade amongst the islands. So I've been working on that, the dummy smuggler, and I'm really happy with the work and the, progress, there's a word, that has been made. And so I'm working on the kind of nailing down the first real solid prototype version of it, and I'm going to put together a page on BGG, and I'll make a video. That's one that I'm not going to hint at. I'm just telling you. I'm going to make a video explaining how it came to be, why I made the decisions I did, and how you can go check it out and try it for yourself. Doesn't use any additional, I think it has a coin. You need to be able to flip a coin that has a heads and tails, so you can't use the coins from the game. But aside from that, it's just the components that are in the game box and one sheet of paper. So I'm really happy with how that comes out, because Ahoy seems like a super fun game, and at 3 and 4 player, that's going to be where it shines anyways, because those different factions are going to intermingle. But I play a lot of games with just my wife, and I want to make sure that the experience we have there doesn't feel like less than, at least not significantly so, from the other ones, because we have a bunch of awesome 2-player games that would just, knock any game out of the running that does that to it. All right, so last up, and then we get to the big topic. This is really kind of near and dear to my heart. This is the first time our daughter has really gotten obsessed, excited about a board game, and that is Raccoon Rumpus. Which was a game that came in our son's stocking, because they're these cute little 3D raccoon heads that poke through these cards with a space cutout for the face. And so they're different outfits with colors on their shirt and their pants. And it's a super simple game. You roll a die. It shows a type of, shirt, pants, shirts and pants, or underwear. And then a die is colors. It's the 5 colors and then a rainbow one. So you can choose whatever you want. And the whole goal is to get 5 outfits stacked up on your raccoon. But if you ever roll the underwear die, you have to get rid of all your outfits and you go down to just your undies. So it's total luck of the roll, and just sort of a silly game, but man, she loves it so much. She loves some of the costumes way more than the others. So if she yes, I got red so I can get the princess dress. And she's handling rolling the underwear die pretty well. She dives right into laughing at us when we do it, and then when she gets it, she kind of feels bad, and so we're walking her through how to handle. It's kind of an important thing. So yeah, Raccoon Rumpus. She made name tags for the 4 different spots around the table, and a ticket that we had to show her to get into the game. So yeah, I'm very excited because it's really adorable, and as a big board game geek myself, obviously gets right to my heart. So Raccoon Rumpus, tell your friends. Okay, so the 10 game challenge. I'm gonna try to hold myself to not gush forever about these games. But the whole idea is, I saw this a couple months back, bouncing around a couple different channels, of if you had to, do away with your collection and keep 10 games, all the rest go away, what would those 10 games be? Now, it's very like in a Venn diagram of like my top 10 games and 10 games I would keep for my collection, there is significant overlap. But that said, it's not entirely, because at least the way I was thinking about this, I want to have a pretty well-rounded or well-rounded-ish collection in those 10 games, because I think the unspoken text is you're not allowed to just bankroll buying a bunch of games after this. The idea is like you're getting 10 because you either have enough room for 10 or you make a hard cap of saying I'm never buying another board game again. Like these are the 10 I have. So I want to have a variety of games that are accessible from this list. The last channel that really made me excited was Max on Table Knots. So this was a couple months back, but there are other conversations that I wanted to have on State of the Hobby, so I'm finally getting to it now. So Max, if you're watching, thank you for your list, and here's mine. I'm going to go in I was originally going to say, yeah, they're not in any particular order, but they actually are, because the way I made my list is I just typed up the ones that made the most sense first, and I siphoned them down. So I'm going to start with the least surprising games and then make my way through. So go ahead and, if you're following along at home, guess what you think the least surprising game is. And you're right, it's Root. This game is lousy with Root content because I love it so much. I think it handles solo play, multiplayer, but also co-op is a really surprisingly enjoyable way to play Root, whether to introduce people or if you just don't want to be antagonistic for a game night. And it's just the amount of factions, the boards, the decks, now the hirelings. There is just an unbelievable amount of variety in that game. Oh, speaking of which, caveat, in my my 10 game challenge, if any of these games have expansions that I already own, they're part of it. I'm not saying, all right, my one is Root, my second one is Root Underworld, my third is Root Marauder. It's one thing. So sorry if that means I'm cheating. I'm cheating. Go ahead and leave a comment in the comments that you think that that's cheating. But anyways, Root, fantastic. I will never get rid of it. And if I had to go down to 10 games, I would absolutely pluck that one off of my shelf to put into the to save area of the room first. Second up is a very different silhouette from all that is Root at this point, and that is Hierarchy. Hierarchy is a 2-player only, well, it has a solo mode, which I don't care for very much. So it's a 2-player only, according to me and my wife. And this is a really special game. Well, I think it's just a super fun, sharp, quick playing, and obviously like insanely quick setup and teardown. It's just, 14 cards, I think? 8 cards? How many do we each get? Anyways, it has to be less than 18 because it's a button shy thing. But I think it's 4, well, whatever it is. We each get like 8 cards pulled from the same deck. So common deck, you shuffle them out, and you take them. They're the same on front and back, and all you're doing is alternating cards. You're going until someone can't play a card of their own, and then they lose. And the cards have numbers on them, which delineate, who is better than others, like in war, but then they each have rules on them that allow them to break that mold. And it's, again, super fast, super sharp. We've played it a ton, but the reason this is on here is because it makes for a really great like date night game. Just pull that, you literally put it in your pocket and go. But more importantly, this has been the game that has helped spin up the game playing wheels for the two of us more times over these past couple of years than I can count. As much as I love board games, and so does my wife, there are times when weeks or even not months, but definitely like days into weeks go by where we haven't sat down and actually played a game. I might have painted miniatures while watching Netflix, but not played any games. And when that happens, you get sort of calcified and like doing other things. So it'd be hard to just say, all right, let's do Dune Imperium tonight, because you're not used to carving out that space if you've lost that muscle memory. But also, a lot of the time we're not playing games is because the kids are being little jerks. And they're not sleeping well, or they're not going to bed well, or whatever it may be. And so the last thing you want is to set up a big game and then get 1 or 2 turns in and have to scrap it, because we don't have a dedicated game playing area. So we can't just say, oh, we'll come back to this tomorrow. And it's like, if we don't finish it, it's all going away and nothing happened. So Hierarchy has been the game that's done that for us many, many times. And I think it's just an incredibly brilliant 2-player design. So it's in there along with Root. Next up, this is the first of 3 games that are solo and co-opable. And this one is Spirit Island. What's interesting is of those 3 games that are solo to co-op, like Spectrum, each one is either more solo, more co-op, or straight up the middle. And for Spirit Island, it is more solo. I do enjoy playing this one multiplayer, and I like, interfacing the spirits together, which I don't do solo, because to me, as much as I love the game, having to 2 or let alone 3 hand multiple solos at the same time, or spirits, makes it super unenjoyable. There's just too many plates to be spun. So I like doing 1 spirit, 1 island, because that bakes into the puzzle that every spirit is going to be, by design, good at 1 or 2 things and not good at 1 or 2 or 3 things. And so you have to go into it saying, all right, I'm a spirit who's really offensive, but I have nothing in the sake of defense, and I actually do a lot to hurt the island myself. Looking at you, Flame Doggo, or whatever it may be. And you need to build out your spirit and play your game in a way that undoes that downside. I think there's just so much, like Root, there's so much variety. And you know what? Fair's fair. You can even say this doesn't include Horizons of Spirit Island, because I keep them separate. My Horizons set is my teaching or on the go Spirit Island, and everything else up through Jagged Earth and the promos and everything are in the main box. That's the one I'll keep. I'll even leave Horizons off to the side. I do like that, but it is different. This is the big meaty, main course with all the spirits, all the adversaries, all the scenarios. Just super amazing. And I can't imagine what it's going to be like when we add all the other spirits from the forthcoming expansion, but Spirit Island just like blew my brain wide open. I don't know why I wasn't on. So this is, of my 3 games so far, 2 of them were games that at first I was like, this is not a game for me. Root and Spirit Island, which are 2 of my absolute top games, and now that I totally slept on at first, and here they are in my 10-game challenge. So isn't life funny? Number 4 is Golem Game, or Century Road Golem Edition. So I think that's the official, we call it Golem Game. So this is the anime Golem version of Century Spice Road, which is a super just refined, straight up engine builder of a game, but in my opinion, with the way more interesting aesthetics. So the crystals instead of the cubes, the golems instead of baskets of spice, but the gameplay is identical. And again, like Hierarchy, this has been the game that my wife and I have been just last night. We're like, we want to play a game maybe a little bit more than Hierarchy, but we want something that's not going to challenge us a ton, that we can kind of go through almost like rote muscle motions for the game, but in a way that's still enjoyable. And that's Golem Game. Sometimes the day is hard and we get to the end of it, we're like, we want to play a game, but we just want to enjoy ourselves and not challenge ourselves. And Golem Game obviously is still competitive, so you're trying to do your best, but the game is so smooth, the actions are so few, that there are times when multiple turns will go by. It's very clear when someone's done with their turn because they've done their one thing, and we might not say anything for 2-3 turns at a time, but also it's a game that is so simple and smooth, but we rarely kind of talk over it with other conversations. It's all like a meditative experience. And yeah, so it's been, again, another great one for 2-player, but also this goes up to 4, and it makes, or is it 5? And it makes for an amazing game to introduce other people to board games, which I did want, available in this top 10 or 10 game challenge. Games that aren't just for the people who've been gaming for a while. Golem Game, we have given that as a gift. We've introduced it to a number of people, and it has hit every single time. So yeah, that's why it's number 4. So it's, again, pretty high in my list of like least surprising to most. So there we go. We move on, number 5. Now, worker placement, kind of a big name, big genre in the industry, and a number of years back, through what, three years back now, I would have said, oh, Lords of Waterdeep with Scoundrels of Skullport, duh. But Dune Imperium has swept that aside, not entirely. I still own Lords of Waterdeep, and if I was looking for something that was more accessible, that's the way I would go. That, or like Snowdonia or something, where it's purely worker placement. As opposed to the deck builder worker placement hybrid of Dune and Arnak that came together at the same time, because sometimes that happens. So that game still exists, obviously, but also it still lives in our collection, and we will choose that over Dune sometimes. However, Dune Imperium, especially now with the Immortality, the second expansion, it just feels so expansive and so fun to mess around with the systems. And the base game, we played a ton in the first year that it was out. I know there were some tried and true pathways to grab some spice, cash it in, get your sword mastered, like boom, 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 do that as fast as you can. That is no longer there because of the new trading overlay that came in Rise of Ix. But there are more options that you can get at. It's not as efficient, but there are more options than just that one pathway. And because of that, it has made other options that were there the whole time, like going for the Emperor spaces and stuff like that, much more palatable or even attractive, as opposed to before. It was like, well, I'd never do that because I could just do this instead. It's just so good. The deck builder part, to me, to my wife, to the people I play with that enjoy it, it's a feature, not a bug. But for some people, that would be, I know what I want to do. I want to put a guy there, and I just drew a hand of cards that didn't have that symbol. And to me, I would say, well, that's part of the game. You need to build your deck to do the actions you want to do. So you have to have that little bit of forethought, or the flexibility through whatever, to be able to make it work. And what I do like about it is, especially in like Lords of Waterdeep, at high player counts especially, it becomes a game of getting your people to exactly where you need them, which sometimes is not possible. There's only one space, or a space for one worker at each of the spaces. And that's true in Dune as well. There are ways to break that rule in both of the games, but especially with now both of the expansions, that's honestly not even the focus of like what the game is built around. The game is built around the fact that there are so many options. What way do you want to pursue victory? Do you and if you're going one way and your opponent is going hard down the combat route, at every turn you need to be thinking, do I have faith in the way that I'm going, or do I need to stop that or truncate it a little bit and build up my combat ability just to, can I race, or do I have to address this in a different way? And it's not about efficiency of placement. It's about choosing what you want to include in the game, because you can't do everything, especially not anymore. But Dune Imperium with both expansions and box control, just chef's kiss. All right, number 6. So we're getting into the more surprising parts. I don't think any of the, aside from maybe Hierarchy, but if you've watched the channel, I mean, I've heaped praise on that game before. So of those first 5, they should be pretty, like, well, of course. Starting here, that might not be the case. And number 6 is the second of the 3 co-op to solo games, and that is Pandemic Fall of Rome, which some of you, I'm just imagining watching. You got the pandemic part, and you're like, and then I said Fall of Rome. You went, ooh, tell me more. So I grew up in the hobby board game space, when Pandemic was coming out. Lords of Waterdeep was one of my first like hobby games that I bought just sight unseen, like, ooh, this seems interesting. Pandemic and Forbidden Island, it's kind of like junior brother. They were around all the time. I've played many games of Pandemic. I still own the original with the expansions included. In the Lab is the best one, by the way. I've played Legacy Year 1 and Year 2, and a little bit of Year 0 as well. I own Iberia, which was my previous favorite Pandemic, and the Cure, the dice rolling one. But it was this Fall of Rome. I knew about it. I was like, boy, that seems interesting, but can I really justify having another Pandemic, even though this one seems different? And my answer now is abso-freaking-lutely. I love Fall of Rome because it has the 70% of the Pandemic DNA of you take your turn with actions. At the end of your turn, you're going to draw the, infect the cards. They're going to put cubes on the map. Every so often there will be an outbreak or a epidemic. I'm using Pandemic terms, not Fall of Rome terms, which will take your discard pile, shuffle it together. You'll draw the one from the bottom. Like that whole thing that we've all come to know, and for many of us to really enjoy about Pandemic, is all present in Fall of Rome, including the going around the map and sweeping up cubes. However, the routes that the cubes take, because they're coming from the different barbarian hordes, and the fact that it's not just, I need to get 4 cards of the thing and then go to the research tent. No, you need a different number of cards based on which of the hordes you're trying to ally with. And there's no solving it, there's no curing it. There is just kind of allying with them, and then they're going to keep making barbarians, which are a threat. But you can now go there, give them a card, and those all turn into legionnaires. And it's super fun. And I'm gonna call it like it is. It is the year 2023, and at this point, I think I'm beyond the place where I would just say straight up no. I'm not going to play Pandemic because gestures to everything. That said, it definitely has taken the cachet of that theme has taken a massive hit. And who knows how long that'll last. But in the meantime, even without that, Pandemic Fall of Rome is my favorite because it has some luck, some dice aspect of it. So it's not purely, you can't math it out. You never truly could Pandemic, but you could come close. I think the setting is interesting. The whole the special cards and being able to do the more badass version of it, but then you have to bring that that tracker down. That's the outbreak tracker. So there's a huge cost benefit analysis that goes on there. It's just super fun. And this one, I would say, this is my middle of the road one. I have played it solo, and I think it works really well solo. But I love playing Pandemic with other people, or I traditionally have. So this one kind of flexes. Spirit Island is mostly solo. I will play multiplayer, but never more than 3 players, I don't think. This, I would happily play with other people or solo, and the third one, we'll see. So next up is going to be, we'll see right now. So number 7 is my last of the 3 solo to co-op mode. This one is more of the co-op side, and that is Marvel United. This absolutely surprised me because when the first Kickstarter was going on, I was one of the people who's like, yo, where are the gameplay videos to see how this works? This seems like an interesting concept, but I want to see it in practice. And I like held that front, and then finally by the end of the campaign I was like, you know what, it really does seem like something that would be a good fit for me and my friends, and I backed it. I only with the base and the stretch goals, and then the Guardians of the Galaxy expansion, because they said the other ones would be available at retail, which turned out to not be true. So when the X-Men expansion came along, I got the other expansions I was interested in. I got the X-Men pledge with all the stretch goals, but then I sold that on eBay and just got a regular X-Men box from the store, because as much I'm a child of the 90s, well 85, but grew up in the 90s, so I know all of these X-Men. If you were in the 90s, you know that theme song, and so I enjoy having Wolverine and Cyclops and Gambit, because I got the Gold Team expansion. But the stretch goals for the X-Men one were like way deep into comic book land, which I've never been like a huge follower of, like actual pulp like comic books. But in the original Marvel United, there were way more characters that I recognized from the stretch goals. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Marvel United is just fantastic in the way that it distills down to just those 12, 13 cards, the identity of a superhero. Boom, there it is. And it's not perfect, but it's all you need, and it's so quick to play. You can teach it in no time. Everyone gets to choose their favorite hero, choose whatever villain, put together locations, boom, you're going. Games are fast. They're oftentimes there are nice narrative arc of ups and downs, and it's just, again, so much replayability. And I think especially when you get into the stretch goal villains and things, it does add a lot of differences of how to play the game. It's not just oh, this one's good at this as opposed to this. There are some way different gaming scenarios you can find yourself in based on who you're playing. Not necessarily who you're playing as, but who you're playing against. But you do need to think of it when your composition of your team, because if you're playing as 3 heroes that all are just brawlers, well, you're going to be really good at beating up thugs, but probably not good at much else. So you need to keep that take that into consideration. And yeah, as a solo game, I think it works pretty well, but I think being able to kind of the whole the united mechanic of you get to use the thing that's on my card, add it to your card, I think really shines when it's other people saying I can play this and then you'll get to use this. It's not a surprise. Everyone knows that it's coming, but it's just that much. It's so fun every time nonetheless. And as a solo player, it's just more baked into the calculus. But in multiplayer, it's much more shaking hands throughout the game. Oh, great. Oh, great. Oh, thank you. So yeah, Marvel United. And personally, I think having 3 of them makes all the sense in the world, because again, Spirit Island solo, Marvel United co-op, Pandemic in the middle. They're 3 totally different game spaces, but in my 10 games that I'm keeping all 3. So take that. There you go. Number 8, QE. This one is just insane. Bidding with blank checks. And I think, again, talking about narrative arcs, depending on who you're playing with and how they're feeling that night, you might kind of ease into the game, or someone might blast up to millions of dollars for their bids. But the fact that the person who spends the most amount of money loses at the end ensures that at some point, no matter how crazy the game begins, the game will get brought back to earth, and then might get crazy again, and then brought back to earth. But the reason that, or the way that that's turned into the magic that QE is that the only people who know that bid is the auctioneer and the person who made the bid. And in higher player counts, you can cash a thing in to see what the winning bid was, but only once. So typically, it's only this silent conversation between these 2 people, and the rest of the table has to just read their faces and be well, I thought I bid a bunch, but I didn't win, so I guess I'm getting outbid still. And it's so fun. A little bit more obtuse to like wrap your head around, like the strategy of it. I mean, the concepts, the mechanics are pretty easy, but the like, I don't understand until you start playing and you're like, oh, now I get it. And I have the expansion. I have not played with it yet, but I'm excited to add it soon. All right, 9th, Mafia de Cuba. QE is like party game feel, but it can only go up to 5 players. Mafia de Cuba, I'm pretty sure goes up to 10, 8 or 10, something in there. And hidden roll, at like super high quality, like they're just a bunch of clay poker chips, and some diamonds and little bottles of tequila. But it all in this cigar box. It's a whole presentation of it. But the reason this is here, as opposed to any of the other hidden anything games, is because this is the only game I've played so far where you have agency over what is the you know, if you're a box of chocolates, and you're all going to say, well, we're all going to be milk chocolate, but you know, everyone's going to be a different center. Mafia de Cuba is the only one where you could say, I want to be caramel, I want to be raspberry cream. Someone's like, I want to be coconut. It's a traitor, but it's true. You get the box, you open it up, and you see you have a variety. Depending on when you get it, you might not have that many decisions to be made, but typically you'll have everything from the diamonds, so you can steal one, some, none. Henchmen, which are loyal to the Godfather, but then the various other, you know, jobs, being in the CIA, being a driver, being the cleaner, and they all have these little rules and they're little ways that they can win. So right from when it's your turn, you get to decide how much am I buying into having to lie. Or if I don't want to at all, I'm just going to be a henchman and I'm going to just be the straightest of shooters for this game. And if the Godfather wins, I win too. And I think that's huge because I've been burned and I've watched other players be burned in an experience in a game where they have to lie and they don't want to. Not everybody wants to lie when they're playing. You know, everyone wants to game the game, but just straight up lying to the point where you convince other people that your lie is not a lie, that's a different level of social interaction, and other people are not always up for that. I'm not always up for that. So Mafia de Cuba, figure I need something with big numbers, and I did kind of game this one because as much as I love monikers, you can also make monikers with just scraps of paper and put them in a hat. So I'm kind of cheating. That's my like 10th and a half one, because there's one more. But yeah, monikers, I can, for like big groups, I can always do that. But Mafia de Cuba, because realistically, how many times am I getting together with more than 10 people who all want to be part of one game? The answer is almost never. So last up, most surprising, not really because of the game, but because of how it got on this list, is going to be John Company. So first of all, elephant in the room, I just got this game, like mid-December. Early December I got it, but it is early January. So I have a month of having this game. But that's not even the most surprising part about this. The most surprising part is it is taking the spot of Parks. I had on here 2 worker placement games. I mean, Parks is like a special type of worker placement. But I talked a little bit at the top of the show how much we love Parks, and we do. But when I really got into John Company and started playing it, I realized this is just as true, the whole like sandbox, like just box of toys, you know, feel of the game, as everyone says, and way more so than even PAX Premier, which I was skeptical of. Like, okay, sure, there are an infinite number of ways you can play a game of Risk too, or whatever, but honestly, how many different ways are there to approach PAX Premier? The answer is a ton. Like, based on, is it staying in like the military climate versus the political, or with the cards you have, the cards you don't. The game is drastically different at different player counts, different game compositions, what cards you see. It's amazingly different, and there are so many different cool options you can go with. Now in John Company, it feels like that, but even more so. they're just a world of opportunities that you can go. What do you want to leverage? What do you want to aim for? What do you care about? And what don't you care about? And what, more importantly, what does your opponent care about? And so it's just this huge world that you inhabit. However, it does pay for it a little bit. There is a cost, and that is just like in Pax Pamir, people need to, the buy-in, like the grokking of the game before you start is really important, because otherwise people won't know what's a good move. Like, what do I even pursue? And in John Company, it's that way too. Like, if no one is vying for who gets to be made the next whatever position is, up for grabs, it falls a little bit flat, because then you don't get that other part of the game, which is, okay, what are people going to offer? Money or ships or, my different allowances. And so if no one does that, because nobody knows what's important and what's not, and they're all going to say, well, I'm not going to give away any money, I'm not going to give away any of these cards because I don't know what's important, and I'll just like turtle up. It doesn't really work. But assuming people do know the value of things, or at least what they perceive the value of things, it's just so interesting. And the fact that a huge driver of the end game victory points is how many people of yours retired and how good of estates did you retire them into, and that's left up to chance of who retires as a dice roll. And you can get more tired as you go and more likely to retire, but there are times when people have all the money in the world and they can't wait to seat someone in that like huge 20-pound like estate, but nobody retires. Round after round after round, none of their family members retire, or they're in a position and they get ousted, which means they don't get a chance to retire. And then the opposite is true too. Sometimes people are only building up a little bit of a purse, and then they have 3 or 4 family members that retire, and they're just like, first of all, I'm not going to be able to retire all of you to good places. Second of all, I don't want to do that now because I was counting on building up more money. And third of all, now that you all retired, that is so much, that's a vacuum of my family's influence on the game. But yeah, John Company, holy moly. And it's just, there are games that I owned like Pax Pamir, or Root, or, Zaya, or things that have just like this inherent, the toyness factor, but like high end toyness factor. But John Company is, it's just insane. Now that is with the coins. I did get those with it. But just like Pamir, it adds a lot having that like metal, like clink, 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 when you're playing the game. But those are my 10.5 monikers that I make myself. So thanks for, this is a much longer video. I had a feeling I was going to do this. I was trying to make it not do this. If you made it all the way to the end, please sign off down below saying horseradish, because my daughter hates horseradish sauce. She thinks it's gross that I like anything with horseradish in it, and she's wrong. So if you made it here, sound off down below and let me know. And as always, if you enjoy what I'm doing here, which is whatever the hell I think is interesting in and around the game space, like, subscribe, comment, all that sort of stuff. But I have no idea what's going to be the next thing coming out. Probably something about Ahoy. But I have no idea when that's going to happen. So until then, happy gaming, and we will see you next time.